Jai Shri Ram. I'm going to tell you a very wonderful story from Katha Sarita Sagara, which is an ancient collection of stories from several sources. It's a very ancient book. I don't even know who the author is. Katha Sarita Sagara. Maybe you can buy that book, but it's a voluminous one. Nevertheless, it's an interesting story. There were two friends. One was a carpenter by profession and he was a very hard working person. The other fellow, you can guess, is a handsome young man but a lazy fellow. You know this ant and grasshopper, na? Aesop's fable. So, like that ant and grasshopper in the Aesop's fable, the ant works hard and the grasshopper is a lazy fellow having a nice time. And the grasshopper actually ridicules the ant. But the ant is busy collecting food and storing it in the ant hill, and this goes on and on. And the grasshopper is enjoying life and actually telling the ant that you don't know how to enjoy life. The ant keeps quiet and keeps doing its work. And eventually, when winter comes, there's no food, and the grasshopper is dying, while the ant is safe because it has saved a lot of food. So the moral we were told is, uh, you must save for a rainy day, and you should not be lazy and all that. So that's a good story, no doubt. It's not that I'm ridiculing that story, but Somerset Maugham, a great English author, he wrote a book in which he ridiculed this ant and grasshopper story, where Tom and George are two brothers. George is the hardworking fellow, and Tom is the lazy fellow. And Tom wastes a lot of money. He is like that prodigal son in the Bible. So, prodigal son. And eventually, the story ends with Tom becoming very rich because a dowager, Dowager, dowager means a very rich widow. She falls in love with Tom and she marries Tom and she dies and leaves a fortune to Tom. So Tom, in spite of all his pranks and antics and escapades and wild behavior, he becomes very rich while George is still struggling. So Somerset Maugham gave us this story, which is an inversion of the ant and the grasshopper story. And we have the Indian version, which is thousands of years old, much earlier than these Aesop's and Somerset Maugham, from the Katha Sarita Saga. So there were two friends. Uh, so let us name them Ramu and Shamu. So Ramu is a very hardworking carpenter. Shamu is a what would you call him? He is unemployed. He is handsome, dark and tall and unemployed, lazy fellow. Huh? So usually these lazy fellows are handsome also. So these two were good friends. And one day Shamu fell in love with the king's daughter. She was out on a visit. So Shamu fell in love with her. Now Shamu is an unemployed fellow, huh? A lazy lout, and he fell in love with the princess. And so he fell so deeply in love that he was unable to sleep. He was thinking of her all the time, and he was not even eating food. So Ramu was very worried about his friend. So he tried to explain to Shamu, okay, listen, it doesn't work out that way. We are, after all, lower middle class, and you cannot hope to uh, marry the princess because it's not possible. But Shamu would not listen because love is blind. So finally, Shamu was in such a bad state that Ramu was worried that Shamu might even die because he was not eating, sleeping, he was pining in love. So Ramu decided something has to be done. So to save his friend's life, Ramu was a very ingenious carpenter. He designed a wonderful wooden bird which resembles the Garuda. Okay, and he also made a wooden Sudarshana Chakra and Shanka and Gada and Padma, and he painted all of them. And he was so clever, so ingenious, that he made this contraption in such a way that it could flap its wings and fly. Okay. Now please suspend your disbelief. Suspend your judgment also. Suspend your disbelief and try to enjoy the narrative. There are so many lessons to learn. See, unfortunately, uh, it is a sad truth that people of Christianity and Christians and Muslims, they suspend their disbelief and they suspend their judgment when they read their holy books, but they are always over eager to criticize Hinduism. Hmm? And unfortunately, many naive Hindus become very defensive and try to defend uh, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Puranas, which are full of many, many fantastic tales. So I think it is very naive, very gullible. On the contrary, we should tell them, listen, we are willing to learn whatever lessons are possible to be learned from your holy books. We are willing to suspend disbelief and we are also willing to suspend our judgment because we are more interested in understanding the narrative, drawing the lessons. So let us not get into this petty fighting. I think that's what the Hindus should tell them. So don't try to defend Ramayana or Mahabharata. Tell people to go to hell. You see, the stories in the Ramayana, like for example, Bhima has the strength of 10,000 elephants. Okay, or 1,000 elephants. And Dhritarashtra had the strength of 10,000 elephants. Oh my God. How do you quantify the strength of an elephant is a question you can ask. So, but any number of questions can be asked. But the idea is not this. The idea is to understand the morals, and it will stimulate your creativity, and what is the deeper moral and what are the principles that we can learn from these stories so that we can lead better lives. So please suspend your disbelief and suspend your judgment also. Whenever I'm talking about Mahabharata and Ramayana, I tell people the same thing. I also tell them, see, Christians, they suspend their disbelief and suspend their judgment completely when they read their Bible. I've read the Bible and I've read the Quran inside out. If I'm allowed to ask questions, I can ask questions which can really annoy anybody. They can be a risk to my life too. So I tell them also. See, when you are reading your holy books and suspending your belief and suspending your belief and suspending your disbelief and suspending your judgment, we are entitled to the same liberty, isn't it? Hmm? So now the carpenter created a wonderful bird which was flapping, and he painted it also to make it look like Garuda. And all these paraphernalia of Vishnu, Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, all these things he created using his carpentry skills, and he colored them also. They were looking so wonderful, almost like the real stuff. And he got his friend some silk, yellow colored silk, because Vishnu, Krishna wears yellow silk. And this guy was tall and dark and handsome, so he looked like Krishna. So he said, okay, now you mount this wonderful new helicopter like bird, and at the dead of the night, in the middle of the night, at the dead of the night, the princess is, she is living in a tall tower. The king was very worried because he wanted to make sure that his daughter doesn't fall in love with some roadside Romeos like this fellow. And he was trying to arrange a marriage with some big king. So he kept her in an ivory tower. So uh, our Shamu took all this, and at 12 o'clock in the night, he mounted the Garuda and it started flapping, and he landed in the balcony and he knocked on the door. The princess got up and she was amazed because this fellow, looking so handsome, and he introduced himself. He said, I am Sri Mahavishnu, and you are actually Lakshmi Devi. We had a petty fight and you came down to earth. And unfortunately, you have lost your memory. So I'm unable to live without you. So I've come down to see you. Initially, the princess was a little doubtful, but he was so handsome and so charismatic, so she believed him. So they talked and so many things. He was a good conversationalist, a smart fellow. So this went on like this. Every day, every night he used to come, and a couple of hours he used to spend, and they used to have a lot of discussions, and by morning he used to escape on the Garuda, the fake Garuda. And so the princess was convinced that this is Krishna, this is Vishnu. And because she was getting up very late in the morning, the mother got worried, what is happening? So she asked the daughter. The daughter told, see, I will tell you, but please make sure that you keep it a secret. So finally the daughter confessed to the mother. that Krishna, Vishnu is coming every day, and she is now determined to marry only Vishnu. So the mother was initially skeptical, but she believed because because the daughter gave so much information about Shankha Chakra, Pada, Gada, Padma, and Garuda, and all that, and the features and all that. So now the queen was very convinced, and she went and told her husband, "Hey, we are so fortunate that Sri Mahavishnu is our son-in-law, and our daughter is actually Lakshmi Devi." The king also similarly reacted skeptically, but eventually he believed because his wife gave him so much information. Now the king was very happy and he became very confident. He shot letters to all the neighboring kings to immediately surrender because his son in law is Sri Mahavishnu, and so he declared himself the emperor. Now, everyone, all the neighboring kings were shocked. Suddenly, what has gone wrong with this fellow? So they tried to reason with him. A lot of, give and take letters were there. Messengers were going running for back and forth. But finally, this king was not willing to listen. He declared himself the emperor. So they all said, we have to teach this fellow a lesson. So they declared war. And all the combined armies of the neighboring kings, they started marching towards this kingdom. So the king was a little panicky, though deep down in his heart he was confident. If Krishna, Vishnu is our son-in-law, everything can be solved. But anyway, he told his wife, and the wife conveyed this message to the daughter, and daughter, uh, in the night when secretly this fellow used to come, she told her prospective husband that, listen, the neighboring kings are going to attack my father, and you must save him. No, not doubt this fellow was caught in a catch 22 situation. Hmm? Paradoxical problem, how to solve this. He cannot solve it, right? You all know, we know what this fellow is capable of. So he said, okay, I'll do something. And then he went away that day very quickly because he started thinking what to do. Gave it a serious thought. So both the friends thought about it. Then they said, this Shamu decided, uh, there's nothing I can do, but I'll give it a try. If I succeed, well and good. Otherwise, it's all over. So, because anyway he was going to die if he would not get to marry the princess. So he said, okay, next day he told his, the princess that, don't worry, tomorrow by afternoon all the armies will come, and by 10 o'clock they will be outside our fort, and I will also sit on my Garuda, and I will stand between the two armies, and when I'll be hovering like a helicopter, hovering, suspended in midair. So he told the princess, tell your father that I will be sitting on my Garuda and I'll be hovering in midair between the two armies. And once they see my Shankha Chakra, Gada, Padma and all that, they will realize that it is a battle they cannot win, and they will be awestruck. At that moment, your king, your father and your soldiers can attack them, and probably they'll run away or they will surrender, and the battle, without a fight, the whole thing can be solved. Because they will also be happy. The other king, they will also realize, okay, Mahavishnu is there, so how can we? So he thought that this will work. And this information, I believe, reached the gods. Because this is not a minor issue. A major issue. All the newspapers were reporting, and in the social media, all this thing was spreading. And the information reached the gods, Indra. And so everyone was talking about it, and information reached the real Vishnu. So real Vishnu was also, he was taking it easy. These kind of things happen every day. Every day some fellow says, I am God and all that. It's all right. But then Narada, Narada told Sri Mahavishnu, sir, don't take it lightly. See, you know what will happen? What can happen is this. Some fellow in the enemy camp might shoot one arrow and this fool will fall dead. Then the whole world will think that Vishnu is dead. So your reputation will get damaged. So you cannot take this lightly. Do you remember what happened to the British? 1857, the first war of independence. Those rascals called it Sepoy Mutiny. Revolt, my foot, it's a revolt. It's our country. Damn it, we are fighting for our independence. First war of independence. The rumor spread that the cartridges were laced with pork and beef fat, which offended both Hindus and Muslims. And I do not know whether that is true. Nevertheless, it sounded like a rumor, and the British dismissed it as a rumor, and they thought that, after all, it's a rumor, what can happen? And the rumor was good enough to shake the foundations of the British Empire. But for a few traitors, we would have got our independence in 1857. That's a different story. Hmm? There were so many Swamis and so many kings whose descendants right now are politicians. Anyway, so that's a different story. So we so Narada told Vishnu, "Sir, please don't take it lightly. It's a very serious issue. Your reputation is at stake." Then Vishnu said, "What should I do?" Narada told him very simple, sir, you are a master of all tactics and Ram Leela, Krishna Leela. Anyway, since you are asking, I will tell you. So Narada gave Vishnu some advice. Yeah. So Narada is actually the grandson of Vishnu, isn't he? So next day, the whole battle scene was ready. Our king's army, the combined army of the other kings, and our hero is sitting on the Garuda like a helicopter with the wings are flapping, and he is holding this wooden Sudarshan chakra and all that with the four wooden arms, and it was a very interesting sight actually. People were all looking, oh my God, he's so charismatic. Hmm? So at that time, when this fellow was holding the Sudarshan chakra, Sri Mahavishnu released the real Sudarshan chakra. And when the real Sudarshan chakra got released, it started hovering, it started chasing the enemy army. And all the enemy soldiers, they thought, oh my God, the real Sudarshan chakra is coming for us. So they all ran away. All the combined armies ran away, and the Sudarshan chakra came back, and it went back to Vishnu. So without a single scratch, without a fight, the war was won. The enemies ran away, and the king became emperor. That's the end of the story. So what is the moral? Gods help those who help themselves. God helps those who help themselves. So if you employ critical thinking, lateral thinking, you can compel even God to help you. Don't idle. Problems will be there in life. Sometimes, very often we will feel that the problems are unsolvable, but no problem is unsolvable. There will always be a solution. Think about it. Lateral thinking, critical thinking, creativity. If you develop that, then you will be able to solve every problem in life. So if you study Mahabharata, Ramayana, Puranas, all these stories you will find a lot of creativity, lateral thinking. Now lateral thinking just is another term for creative thinking. Vertical thinking means logical thinking. Lateral thinking is divergent. Logical thinking is convergent. So we must develop our capacity for lateral thinking, that is creative thinking. The thirsty crow story is another one which you already know. So this is a wonderful story of Ramu and Shamu, and how Shamu escaped disaster and he compelled Vishnu to save him. And everybody had a nice time. You see, finally the king was declared the emperor, and all is well, the tents well, and everybody lived happily ever after. Jai Sri Ram. Nice story. I hope you loved it. See you next time with another story. Jai Sri Ram.